Welcome to Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Rebecca Leppard. Rebecca is a neurodivergent entrepreneur who transitioned from a high-powered corner office at a five-star hotel to the fast-paced and dynamic world of tech and consulting. She founded Upgrading Women, a media company and marketing agency helping women founders go to market. She's the first Indonesian immigrant in the UK that has been invited as a thought leader in Southampton City Council, Barclays Eagle Labs, IronHack, and various startup scenes in England and Europe. Her dedication in unlocking the voices of the unrepresented workforce stems from her lived experience. Rebecca is also committed to making a tangible impact in her community and has made a pledge to take on one pro bono client for every paying client. Well, welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you. And I want to say hello in 200 different languages for your global listeners.
Excellent. Thank you. And so your journey has changed quite a bit from your start to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how it came about for you.
Yes. So I am an Indonesian born and bred. I was born in the capital, Jakarta, and I never left until in university, I finally got my passport. And I visited Singapore. That was my first overseas travel with, and it was in university, it's a class trip.
Okay.
So it was like visiting, and I went to journalism school. So I went to Singapore to check out their broadcasting studio, their radio stations, etc. And then I moved, so I started my career in Jakarta. And then I moved to Bali. Thinking that that would be my stepping stone to going global, go international. And I went there and my career took off. I joined a PR firm and they were about to make me partner until one day in a business trip, I met with my husband who got a job in Jakarta. So I was back to square one.
Oh, no.
I was like, wow, I was so close to going international. Because in Bali, you see all sorts of expats because it's a hospitality island.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of chefs from all cuisines around the world. There's Italian chef, there's French chef, Japanese chef, and all the general managers of hotels and whatnot. So I thought, oh, okay, this is it. But then I married a Brit, but he's based in Jakarta.
Okay.
So I was back to square one. I was feeling so sad. But then I thought, you know what? I will still shine in an international environment anyway. So I assert myself working in international companies. And at the time I worked for the five-star hotels. It's a German brand. So again, I was working with German chefs, German general managers. So my day-to-day life, I actually, now that I think about it, at that time, I barely speak my mother tongue because I speak English with my husband and with my coworkers. And I felt like then fish out of water. Like I almost, like there's this a South African expat in Jakarta that said to me, Rebecca, you are like an honorary expat. And then because we were talking and like, oh, these locals are this and that. And I said, I'm a local. No, you're an honorary expat. But then it dawned on me, yeah, I'm an honorary expat in that I think and behave and operate in a good way like professionals. Expat in the definition of you're a professional, you're an expert in your field, you've been sent from away from your home country to help the team in the different country, normally in an emerging market, to help them set up, right? And for that, you're being given a nice expat package, right? Your house is covered, even down to the school of your kids are covered. And this is international school, which costs an arm and a leg. And I felt, again, so bad about myself that I perform as good as, if not better than you, because I speak both languages, the international and the local language, but I'm paid the local wage. How unfair. And again, and I remember I came home to my expatriate husband saying like, oi, between you and me, you know that I'm good at what I do. But why am I not being paid as handsomely as you? It's not fair. So years and years later, when the pandemic happened, he got his kind of karma, quote unquote, for being an expat. So he was the first one to be let go because he was the expat.
Right.
And then I was thinking, okay, you're being let go because of the pandemic, and we have at this point now 3 British children. So I'm the only Indonesian left. So let's emigrate, or for their case, let's go back home. So we landed in London Heathrow, 1st of June 2020, right in the eye of the pandemic.
Wow.
Exactly. Flights were shut down. The service became, the 3-a-day flight became 3-a-week flight at the time. So we flew using Qatar Airways, who still fly at the time, thank God. And the flight, it was so empty. It was so creepy, Sally. It's like in the movies, like the doomsday movies. And
Not like, oh, it's almost like a private jet.
No, because everyone wearing a
because
mask.
the mask,
right?
right? Yeah.
The mask, but the cabin crew wearing the whole PPE.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that okay. Now it went from not like a private jet to totally creepy.
No. It's like we are being transferred to a secure bunker or something along those
Wow, I
lines.
didn't realize that the crew was ever wearing full PPE because
Oh my
I
God.
wasn't really
Well,
flying
it's for
much
their
then.
safety,
But right, but wow, yeah, that's a different feeling than when you're on the plane.
Exactly. It's like a flying emergency room almost.
Right.
But the food was still nice. So
Well, that's good.
yeah. So the flight was this is a Boeing, a massive flight.
Mhm.
And it was only 25% occupancy. So each of
Okay.
us, we're a family of 5, each of us have our own row. So we can just lie
Nice.
down.
Because that would be a long flight.
It had a long flight. So we had to fly from Jakarta to Doha to change plane, and then to Heathrow, London. In Doha, it was like madness because everyone was at a stage of exodus. Like, where am I going? Am I going to be safe here? Am I going to be safe there? Am I safe here in the airport even? Right?
Right.
Can you imagine? This is
Because nobody knew. We had no idea what was going on. I mean, the media was making it like the world is going to end and we are all going to die.
Yes, exactly. And I had with me a 7-month-old baby who was still nursing. So I'm even like, is it safe for me to breastfeed her out in the open air? Right?
Right.
And at that point, if you remember, we didn't even know, should it be the sick or should it be the healthy one who wear mask? Remember?
Right.
And what type of mask should we be wearing? Like N95, whatever. And when we don't have the stock, and everyone's going crazy. So I just want to the listeners to imagine the state of mind. So the cortisol level, the adrenaline was I'm just awash with those. And when we landed here, we had to just quarantine. We didn't actually have to quarantine because, again, the world leaders were still scrambling to write an SOP what to do, right?
And they never completely agreed.
Exactly. Different countries have different rules. And I'm like,
right.
There's one virus.
And it doesn't act differently in different countries.
Yeah. They don't translate differently. It's the same.
Yeah.
So, and then we just use our common sense because we arrived at my father-in-law's house. Mm. He was 80 and we didn't want to make him sick. So we transferred him to my sister-in-law's house, and he quarantined. He made his own bubble there, and our family of 5 occupied his room. So we didn't even cross paths. So he was already relocated before we landed. Honestly, this is crazy stuff, crazy times.
And I mean, looking back, it was great, but it was like all the things because nobody knew, and it was just sheer fear and panic that was being pumped out by the media to make everybody scared.
Exactly. And this is just to also show that if you can imagine the level of project management that we had to really, then you have to prepare. My husband got 2 days notice of his layoff.
Wow.
I got 1 week notice from British Embassy saying, go ahead, you can go home now.
And you had a family to pack up in that time and get everything done and book a flight and
I had to sell everything as well.
Wow.
Right?
And sell everything during a pandemic. I'm sure that was easy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Simple. Just sell it all.
Oh my God. Sell the house, the car, the everything. And then and I couldn't even say proper goodbye to my family.
Right.
We said goodbyes, our goodbyes over Zoom in a massive, like you can imagine an Asian family. It's like my aunt, my uncle, my cousins,
Brutal. Yeah.
It is. And I mean, I praise God that I didn't lose any immediate family member. I did lose a few good friends, but I didn't lose my family to COVID. But I lose my home, right?
Yeah.
But then, so when I got here, I was on a tourist visa, so I was not allowed to work. Okay. And the home office, which is like in the US, it would be like the State Department. So they're closed. They're on lockdown, right? They're not issuing any.
And we don't know for how long at this point in time because this is all just happening. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, up in the air. So I had to wait, all in all, from the day I landed until the day I got my visa. The correct visa was 13 months. So it was 13 months without an income from either of us. Because the whole point of my husband is back home is because he was laid off.
Right.
And I did have a job, by the way, but because of the stress and the distance and the breastfeeding and everything else, I was so exhausted that I'm like, I think I have to save my life first before saving my livelihood.
Yes.
Right? You cannot have a job anyway when you're dead.
No, doesn't work that way.
Exactly. No one is hiring in Ghost Town.
No.
So yeah, so I had to resign. My husband was laid off, and we had no security, as in no one in the government saying, right, you just have to wait 3 more months or 3 more years. No one is telling us anything. The government is like, well, just sit tight. And I'm like, oh my God. So the entire time we were just living a really frugal lifestyle to a
Mhm.
point. This is the first time we were on food stamp, the equivalent of food stamp.
Okay.
And remember, I had a 5-star life before that,
Mm.
be on food stamp. Again, thank God, I never had such a big ego that I'm like, my family is fed, we have roof over our head, I'm fine. I don't need to flex on Instagram that I have my Birkin bag or anything. So,
Mhm.
yes, but then as soon as I got my visa, I started applying for jobs. Another hurdle,
Yeah.
because everyone who was laid off in the pandemic clamoring for jobs. So
Right.
I was in that market, and it's so crazy that to a point that I finally, at the latest stage to my going back to the 5-star hotel life. So there's this particular hotel in central London. I was there facing my future boss, only for him to say, I don't think you're cut out for this because you have to commute for hours every day and you have 3 small children. And I thought, shouldn't that be my call? Shouldn't that be my decision and my calculation? And that left me such a bitter aftertaste that I was like, okay, if no one believes in me who is a mother, if they don't believe in me because I'm a mother, I'm going to show them that mothers are the best project manager. Mothers are the most creative. We can cut budgets like no other. We are resourceful. We
Mhm.
can operate basically with minimum sleep, right?
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to build my own company and I will hire exclusively women. And I did this year.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. So 3 years after my crash landing in London Heathrow, I now own my own limited company. I own it 100%. I don't have any capitalist investors. I bootstrap it because I really want to show it to people that, you know what, we can. If you don't believe in me, I believe in me, and I
Mm.
will make the market believe in me enough that they want to hire me in my company. So that is the journey. And now I'm in a journey of hiring even more underdogs. And
That's fantastic.
yeah, and now we have a team of 15.
That's amazing. Isn't it interesting how sometimes in the moment when a door kind of closes on us,
Mhm.
and in your case, for somebody to say, how dare you say what is right for me? That's my job, what's right for me. But in a way, he was right.
It
If
was,
we think like now
yeah,
looking back we can, but at the time, and we get angry and we're like no, and the door closes and you're probably upset because of
yes,
everything that was going on in the situation and needing a job and the frustration. But sometimes those things are the best thing that ever happens to us. We just don't know at the time. We don't know for a week, a month, or maybe a year
no,
that sometimes those no's are the best thing that could ever happen to us.
yes, and that was not even the first or second nose. If you see the whole journey from me gotten a no when I was, in my mid 20s, I could have gotten another job. I could have said no to my boyfriend at the time to marry him and go back to my hometown. I felt like, oh,
Right?
then,
Yeah, life
right?
would have been so different. It would
Life
not
would
even be what it is now. Who knows
exactly,
what it would be?
exactly. And then if my husband didn't get laid off, it's going to be different. So many disappointment, so many rejection will lead you to the path that you're meant to be.
Right.
Right.
Right. I think it's true. And sometimes, like when people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky," I say, "I'm not lucky. Like I was lucky to be born in Canada. That is luck. Like I
I
lucked out.
agree.
I was born in Canada. That absolutely, because I have no control over that.
Yeah.
That was just sheer luck.
Yeah.
Everything else I've done with my life is not luck.
Mm.
I have designed my life the way it is, the good and the bad, that they were all my decisions, my responsibility, the good and the bad. And because I do travel a lot and I've lived in different places, so they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky." And it's like, no, I designed it. I made my life. I made these decisions. I miss out on things. I don't see people often. But those are my choices. But it's not luck other than, if I, like I said, born in Canada, lucky. If I win the lottery, I'm lucky, but I'm never going to win because I rarely buy a ticket. So, like you still have to
Exactly. I
do,
was about to say, even lottery, you got to buy the ticket first.
you got to buy the ticket. So, there's, and so it's interesting that the decisions that sometimes are made for us, but also it's how we respond. Because then
Yes.
some people are like, "Well, it's not my fault. This," you're right. There's a million things that
The
happen in our lives
pandemic
that
is
aren't
not
our fault.
anyone's fault.
But how we deal with it, what we do, the
Yes.
steps that we take, and sometimes it is one step forward, three steps back. Oh, three steps forward, one step back.
Yeah.
And it's how we respond, because we've all had stuff that we could be, "Oh, bad things happen. I'm going to stay at home and not go out in public ever again."
Mm.
Or, "Oh, these bad things happen. I'm just going to like curl up in a ball." Everybody's had bad things. Everybody has things to deal with. I mean, we've all lived through the pandemic. Those were some
Yeah.
bad things. Very few people did well during them. There was a few.
There's
Definitely there was a
few,
few.
and we
There was
hate them.
some, but but again, it's how we deal with things. And sometimes it is stepping through that fear. And so I'm sure for you as well, moving to London, there was probably, even if we take out the timing of the pandemic and everything, there's some excitement to it, but there's also some fear. There's a little bit of like, how is it going to work? What am I going to do? And everybody has it. I've lived in 5 different countries now, and I'm preparing to probably move to another. And there's still a little bit of that. Which one's the right one? Is it going to work? What's the right place to go to?
You know what? You'll never know.
Yeah, and I know I'm going to, because I know that it's what I do, because I've done it so many times. And
So
everything is
I think what I'm saying is you'll never know when you hit a fork in the road. You can never really know the parallel universe, what it would have been, because then the factor will be different. If you move to London in 2020, it would be different if you move to London in 2023, right?
Absolutely.
So even if it's the same location, different timing, whether you came to New York before 9/11 or after 9/11, it's different again, and so on and so forth. If you move to America during Trump's era or during Obama's era, and during Obama's era, which era? Was it 2008 crash? There's so many factors. And I agree with you completely. It's all about our response. And I'm not saying that I was so fabulous that I responded so positively. I want the listeners also to know that at the time, I was also clinically diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I did not come here with, oh, my head held up high and like I'm ready to conquer a new world. I never worked anywhere else outside of my home country. That's one. 2, I never lived that far away from my family. The furthest that I lived was an hour flight away. I always had support. I had my best friends around me. And now I'm in a foreign country in which brown skin is not something that is celebrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how am I never had to deal with racism before in my whole life. I only see racism on TV and I couldn't relate. And now I'm living and breathing it. And it's so I mean, again, take away the pandemic, the whole thing is a culture shock.
But
And
add the pandemic to it. From what I recall, most people who lived in any Asian country there was more racism towards that because of people's ignorance of, oh, the virus came from China, so that means
yeah,
every person from any Asian country is to blame.
yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
and so that is not even just dealing with it, but it was a whole new level of
Oh,
dealing
yes.
as well.
Like a lot of Asian people were hurt in the US because of the Asian hate crime. And so again, even without the pandemic, it's already a baggage. And now with the pandemic, it's a whole thing.
And just the lifestyle difference, like you said, going from both you and your husband working, doing good jobs, having a
yes.
very good lifestyle to no income coming in, staying in your father-in-law's home while he's out of his home elsewhere, and really budgeting
Yeah.
what little there is. And I mean, that alone is challenging to begin with. But it was great that through all that, you were still able to, over time, because we're not talking just overnight here, of course, but
No.
over time, do things, get back to feeling a bit better,
Yeah.
adjusting, moving up and thinking, okay, now I can start to look for work. And then, oh,
Yeah.
more doors are still closing as
Oh, yes.
your own personal self is building back up. And
Mhm.
every door that closes, again, it's like a little hit to bump you back down.
Yeah.
But you persevered, you still pushed through, knowing
Yes.
that personality traits that you have within you were still there.
Yes. And it was deep, deep down inside, buried when I was still suffering from severe depression. And here's another kicker for an Asian person. You will never hear any Asian person say or admit that they have depression or have symptoms of depression. So to even admit it to myself, to my family, and eventually to my doctor, that was another thing that, oh yeah, you're lucky. You live in the country where there's healthcare. Yeah, but if I didn't get over the stigma of admitting that I need help, I wouldn't have gotten help.
Right.
Right? So as a Canadian, you would know you have free healthcare.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But still, some people don't use it. Some people
exactly.
don't access it. Some people are just, no, I'll be fine. Or, well,
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm used to feeling this way. It's
Yeah.
just life is sucks and it's
Life
the way it
sucks.
is.
And yes, life
Life
sucks.
sucks.
And that's the way it is. It's I have to say, that's a very English way of seeing things. Now that I'm here, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
actually. But yeah, but then I was like, you know what? There's help
Yeah.
available. I don't even have
Mhm.
to pay for it. All I need to do is to admit that I need help. And I know
Mhm.
somebody out there listening would probably, if I can persuade one person listening to this, go get help. Even if it's not something for free, and if you can afford it, go for it. You can you can always earn back your money,
Mhm.
but your time you can never buy back. Your
Nope.
peace, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
can do something to help yourself, either therapy, medication, community, whatever it is, get help.
Mm. And those things are really important. And there's been a lot of scientific studies about meditation and really community. People spend money on things to try to make themselves happy. and we realize, things don't make us happy. It's community, it's what we do, it's giving back, it's helping others. Those are the things that make us happy. And so one thing too for the listeners to know is that there are challenges with moving abroad, because you're leaving your community. You're leaving them all, you're leaving them behind. Now, of course, there's Zoom and there's Skype, and it's great.
It's
And I
different.
use those things all the time. It's fantastic, but you need to build a new community, because otherwise we can become very isolated. Then we can become very sad, which could then lead into depression and things like that. And so obviously during your time, it was very hard because in the pandemic. But
You
now for
cannot
those
even
people,
shake hands.
yeah, no, you couldn't. You had to stay 6 feet away with
Yeah,
a
like,
mask on.
hello, hello, this is me. No, not even me. This is half of my face, right?
Yeah.
Please be my friend. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Um,
And nobody wanted to meet anybody new then.
no, like, plus somebody who looks like they've been carrying virus across the globe. So, but I tell you what I did. Because I have kids, and so in England, kids don't have to wear masks until they're 11.
Okay.
In Asia, everyone, babies, newborn babies have to wear at least a visor. So over here, and I take my kids to the park. And at the time, park could already open, because when we arrive, the first few months when we arrive, you cannot even enter a park. Can you?
Right.
There's police line everywhere. It's so scary. You cannot, like, my kid was like, there's a swing, there's a slide. Why can't we go in there? No, you can't. It was a crime scene almost.
Right.
So eventually when parks were open, I went there with a mask on, but my kids' faces are out in the open. So my kids are of mixed race. So they can kind of like pretend to be fully white. So, and I kid you not, very often I was mistaken as the nanny. Tell you what, exactly. So I didn't take offense. I mean, I just laugh it off. And so when I go to parks, I brave myself to introduce myself to fellow moms. Because guess what? Who's the loneliest of the loneliest in the pandemic? It's the moms. Because we are cooped up in the house, and we are normally the carer, right? And especially new moms. They just gave birth, they have hormones all over the place. They hate everybody. They hate themselves because their body is changing. And all they want to do is what? Misery, love company. So,
right.
So that was, I was building my first tribe, was moms within, walking distance from the park. So I, again, lucky, quote unquote, enough that I'm an extrovert. So I just put myself out there like, hi, I'm Rebecca. I live on this road. My kid is this old. How about you? And so on. And then some of them are like, oh, actually, I live on the same street. Oh my God, which number? Da, 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 da. And then, shall we see each other again tomorrow, same time in this park? So that snowballed into, now we have, now a 3-year-old friendship. And it's lovely. And we go to each other's birthday now and things like that. But again, that luck that I'm an extrovert, if I didn't pair that with an actual networking effort, I would have been so lonely. And that loneliness, I tell you, you can Google it. You can find so many articles and studies that says loneliness is the next pandemic.
And it increases our what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't want to say cause of death, but it shortens our life.
Oh yeah.
The people that are the most lonely have a shorter lifespan than people who are active, part of a community, have friends, and are doing things.
Yes, absolutely. We are an organism in an ecosystem. Like even our own body has germs, good and bad,
Yes.
right? So we all need, we have to live off each other.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I would also encourage, because here's the thing as well that I notice. Every culture, when they move abroad, the first thing they want to find is their fellows, right? Fellow
Mm-hmm.
Indonesians like me, or fellow Turkish, fellow Canadian, fellow.
Mm-hmm.
But while it's very, very well and good, I eventually so after the lockdown was finished, which is like 2 years, I finally get to see my fellow Indonesian people. But before that, nothing. What I'm saying is go and find your closest physical neighbor first. Reach out to them first. Because, again, imagine if you need to isolate, because COVID, the disease itself is still here. It's not finished.
It's never going away. I said that
Exactly.
to you, like it's never going to go away.
Exactly. So let's say, knock on wood, next week you have to isolate. Who do you think that you can reach out for help? It's your next door neighbor.
Mm.
I know that in modern life, we never know our next door neighbor. Let's be honest. I was guilty of that. I used to live in high-rise apartment. I only know those who share the lift with me, like the elevator.
Mm.
Even that, it's more like just, hello, are you off to work? And then the elevator ride finish, and then that's, you never
That's it.
know what's going on in their life. If you don't see
Right.
them the next day, you just assume that they're on holiday. But in the pandemic, we learn, sadly, tragically, that so many bodies were not found until days after,
Right.
because their neighbors, they don't, it's not
They
about not
knew.
caring, but they just
No, they
don't
just
know
didn't
each other.
know. And especially because we were isolated, even people that live alone, right? Like knowing people in your building, as you said, if something happens, or if you fall and you break your ankle or your wrist, who can either take you to the hospital or who can pick up a few groceries for you? And
Exactly.
if you know them in your building, most times, like if somebody came to me because they broke their, sure, I'm going to the grocery store, I'll pick some extra stuff up, no problem.
Yeah.
Right. And that is that starting of building a community to
Yes.
start with where you live.
Yes. And don't be afraid. This is so my husband, bless him, he lives in his own homeland. I have more friends than him. I know that a lot of people like, but I'm shy, but I'm whatever excuses. Okay.
Mm.
But I tell you what, the same way that you eat your vegetables, not because you love it, but because your body needs it,
Right.
get yourself out there. And if you're worried about how you look, how you would come across, if you're worried about your accent because you're a foreigner, gosh, a lot of people thought I'm American over here because I don't sound like them. A lot of people thought I'm from the Philippines, whatever. Because in my mind, I'm like, if they want to mistaken my race or whatever, I don't mind. I just not want to be alone in this world.
And sometimes people like accents. There's a lot of nice sounding accents, even though we may not think ours is, but
Yeah.
somebody else might think it is. Like, I don't think I have an accent because I hear myself all the time.
Yeah.
And I was in England, and I was pet sitting one time, and a gentleman was staying out in, they had their, it wasn't a garage, but it was converted into an apartment anyway, an
Yeah.
outdoor building. And so he came in and I said, okay, well, here's this and this, and there's a grocery store down here. And I told him a few things, and he asked me something. And I said, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't live here. And he's like, well, that's obvious with that accent. And I was like, Okay, I know I don't sound British, but I'm just kind of like, oh, I guess, yes, to you I have an accent, but
Yeah, exactly. And it's so good because it kind of forces people to acknowledge who you are in the sense that I know that I talk about racism earlier. I want people to ask me where I'm from. I know that for many people, it's either annoying or offensive to be asked, like, why did you assume that I'm not from here? You know? But for me,
there is a lot of that.
right?
There is a lot
Yeah,
of
there
that.
is a
That's
lot of that.
right.
But I can tell by now, and I'm sure you can too, if people ask you the question, the same sentence, because they genuinely are interested in you and they genuinely want to learn more about you, and it's not about them. So it's they're like, they want to find, because here's the thing, as soon as I say, oh, I'm from Indonesia, oh my God, I actually have been there back in the 80s. I went to honeymoon with my husband. Then it's a conversational starter.
Right. Because now you have a connection. You have
Yes.
something in common.
Yes. And even that, literally 2 days ago, I was in a bus in London with this 87-year-old lady that says, oh my God, I followed my husband who was in the army. We went to Malaysia, Singapore, and Philippines, but we never got to Indonesia. There you go. But that is a part of a conversation with someone in a bus. So the half-hour journey in the bus felt like 5 minutes.
Right. And it's nice for both people. She was probably very happy to be talking with you, and it was nice for you to be talking with her.
Yeah, imagine that. At 87, most of your friends are dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And everybody else on the bus is on their phone. So you just sit there and watch the street go by.
Yeah. And I remember the first thing she said to me, and I'm glad that she started the conversation because she assumed at the very least that I understood English. So it's a compliment. So she was looking away from the sun. She's like, oh, it's so bright. And I didn't bring my sunglasses. And then we got to talking. I appreciate it. Like every conversation in England start with the weather, of course.
At least it's starting.
Yes,
at least it's a start. So you can start any conversation with anybody, because even if you don't know, you can make a comment about the weather, and then from that the response will make the conversation go.
Yeah, and you can choose not to continue the conversation if you're not in the mood. But if you are a new kid on the block, I highly suggest, like, even though, oh, Rebecca, it's just a chit chat, it doesn't matter, you won't even exchange number with that person. No, but I tell you what, that 5-10 minutes conversation with the Uber driver, with the bus, the tuk-tuk driver, what have you, that will give you an instant dopamine boost in your hormone. I'm telling you that. Again,
it's true. And one other thing is, you also don't know the impact that it makes on the other person. Right? For them, it could be just like, oh, wow, that was nice. Or depending, it could be a 5-minute conversation. And later they're like, oh, hey, I had somebody sitting next to me on the bus, or somebody who was in my car today that I drove to, and they were from here. And we chatted about whatever it may have been, can continue on through the day. Or it's just like, wow, that was somebody really nice that I gave a ride to. And I had a really bad day, and the last person was rude and mean, and the next person, oh, they were so nice and polite.
yes. And again, if you're from a different country and you made a nice impression, guess what? That person will think that your entire country is as nice as you. Right?
Because all Canadians are nice. They think all Canadians are nice, so I'm lucky. But I always say to them, they're like, oh, you're Canadian, you're so nice. I'm like, not all Canadians are nice. Thank you. Thank you, yes. But let's be honest, not all, but thank you.
That is so true, though. It's like, oh, they're so polite, they're Canadian.
Yeah, it is. So Rebecca, so now you've adjusted, and we know, we have to be making community and making friends and starting conversations. And so you've obviously integrated that within your work and what you do. So tell the listeners a little bit about what you do and how they could be in touch with you if they wanted to work with you.
Sure. So my company is called Upgrading Women. The website is upgradingwomen.com. My email is rebecca@upgradingwomen.com. The reason why I call it Upgrading Women is because I noticed that not only that women were impacted more during the pandemic, but in general, we are so bad at promoting ourselves and our business. We would be so happy to say, oh, listen to Sally's podcast. But we would never say, but I have my own podcast. If you want to listen to it, it's not so good. Forget it. Just listen to Sally's podcast. That is
Absolutely. I know. I understand completely. Absolutely.
completely. But again, if we bake a cake or cookies, but then we saw, oh, Linda's cupcake is so good. But we never say, oh, you should try my cake because so-and-so. But I noticed that men easily, it's like, yo, look at my garage, or look at my tech startup company. It's the best thing ever, bro. Like, no, it's not. But I want more women to have, quote unquote, the audacity of a young white man. That we have the confidence that we have, because guess what? We are probably better at, again, doing the job that we do. And because we self-critique so much, we learn more and we improve more. That's my hypothesis anyway. We can be better because we always feel like we're not good enough, and we chase perfection all the time in any aspect of our lives. So because my field is in communication and in marketing, I said, okay, I will help women in their business, especially tech companies, to help promote their stuff. Because, and this is again a shitty statistics, that there's, out of the billion gazillion venture capital fund, women founder only get 1%, one teeny tiny percent. And here's another kicker. When women build something, they build it to solve problem in the community, in the families, in the gender. When we build something, we don't build it to fly ourselves to Mars. When we build things, we try to solve actual pain and feed the hungry. So there you go. That is what I do. So whenever I see a female founder, I'm like, let's get you out there. Let's spread the gospel, sister, that your product will solve people's actual real life problems.
That's fantastic. That's great. And so we will put links in the show notes so anybody can easily get in touch with you. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time, Rebecca. I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners got valuable information and just things that they can kind of look into themselves and kind of find those strengths and be aware of some of the things that we all go through, and it is normal. But there's, when a door closes, it always means it's not the right door, or maybe it's just not the right time, and something else will come along, something that we're meant to do, or a place we're meant to be.
Yes, amen to that, sister. Thank you for having me.